Yeah, absolutely. So, welcome everybody. We're going to be, I guess, letting Crypto Sensei here from Cryptonaires talk about who he is, what he's doing. We can talk a little bit about collective and kind of have a little fun chat today. So, thanks everybody for coming. I don't know, do the boys, you got anything you want to add in?
I think doxing a patient and Zom is moving to a little bit better area. So I don't know if they're ready yet to talk, but I can kind of introduce myself if that's cool. My name's Robert Doyle. I was in sales before I found crypto and sold cars when I was younger. Then I moved to real estate in the last 7, 8 years. And I found crypto about four years and some are 3, 4 months ago, and my life changed. And so I had less time to go out and do things. I found myself just trying to research and understand kind of this new technology. And I got immediately hooked because I knew that some of this technology would be used for the future. And I really wanted to find out as much as I could about everything and really kind of place my bets where I see and what information that I'm taking in. So I liked sharing the knowledge that I had so much. I was teaching people one by one about crypto, and you know how that goes when you're new in crypto. You don't know how to use a MetaMask, you don't know how to set up an account on a centralized exchange, and so that got very tiring. I would spend 4 or 5 hours in a day trying to get people onboarded into crypto, and I'm like, God, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I created a group me, and the group me was good. We had about 40 or 50 people in it to start. And the problem with a group me is, when you put something very, important in there and then 100 people decide to chat afterwards, it kind of gets lost in the shuffle. So we created a Discord and we called it Cryptonaires. And Cryptonaires is just over 2 years old. And we have a team there that's dedicated to researching all aspects of crypto, whether that's blue chips, NFTs, DeFi projects like CLF, new DeFi projects and great teams. And we actually have a trade finance person in there too that does a lot of traditional finance posts. So the NFT team will do NFT posts, traditional finance will do traditional finance stuff, and we have some DeFi and blue chip stuff. I usually handle most of the DeFi and blue chip stuff. And this is all I do full time for the past 4 years now. And I'm on the computer maybe 10, 12, 14 hours a day, usually from like 7 a.m. to 9 o'clock at night. And this is all I do 24/7. And so I research myself. I first am a student, and then once I understand something well enough, then I bring it into the community and educate the community on it. And this is pretty much anything to do with ISO, anything to do with central banks, anything to do with what banks are looking at adopting their technology, and trying to find where I'm going to place my bets, right? Because this is a new niche market, right? We don't yet have the entire world in it yet. And really, that's what we're doing right now is we're placing our bets, right? And we're trying to understand the technology and find out really what is going to be here in the future. And if we can make some right decisions now, that could impact the rest of our life. So that is really what I'm focused on doing, and it's been a lot of fun. We have I host 2 different chats a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, and I will bring pretty much all of the relevant, interesting news that I've found. I watch hundreds of hours of video each month. I go through PDFs, Twitter posts, LinkedIn posts, Reddit stuff, anything you can name where I can find crypto information. I'm digging on it, and we have a great team and a great community full of people that all are really in crypto, and we all share information and we grow together. So that's pretty much Cryptonaires in a nutshell. We also have a side division called DeFi Sentry. That's an audit firm. For in 2021, we were looking at about 100 projects a month coming into Cryptonaires wanting to do AMAs. And we built out a team to look at smart contracts because in DeFi, usually what happens to a new project when it fails, it's usually to do with the smart contract. So that is kind of one of those extra areas that we wanted to make sure we were dealing with a serious, well-rounded team. And so we do have somebody, several people on staff that can read a smart contract, go through it, and see if there's any issues or flags, let's say, And we'll not invite those people in for an AMA once we find those mistakes. And a lot of times we've helped projects fix some mistakes, but that's pretty much Cryptonaires DeFi Sentry in a nutshell.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, you mentioned you were working on cars when you were younger. I bet Crip would love to chat with you a little bit about that.
Well, I sold cars, and but my dad was an old Chevy guy, and so we'd have like 68 Camaros and different things around, and he liked fast old cars, and so did see a lot of those.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
Nice.
So you've been in crypto for 4+ years now?
Yep. And
That's awesome.
every day is a new day, right? You learn something new every day, and you kind of keep growing. But yeah, man, it's a good time. I mean, I don't know how long you guys have been in this space, but it's an incredible time to be in this space. I know everywhere you look around, like there's an attack on crypto, especially here in the United States, but in other parts of the world, people are adopting this technology. Governments are changing laws, and the technology is being adopted because I think that governments and elites in different places and regulators understand how important this can be for any space, transforming any space, right? But really, when you're looking at like the stock market, bond market, and the derivative market, that is kind of where a lot of the money is. And so that's what I really wanted to focus on, finding what technology is going to be used in all of those things. And then, we could talk about that too if you want, but there's several different crypto projects that I've been just every day studying for the last 4 years, and I have a pretty good understanding of like XRP, XDC, XLM, Quant, and I don't know, 100 other projects. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, man.
What got you interested into XRP and wanted to research that? Because I know tons of people are into.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
So it was funny. My dad called me and he asked me to look into something for him, and it was XRP. And I had no idea. I wasn't in Bitcoin. I can't say that, hey, I'm a millionaire off Bitcoin. But I started learning about XRP, and I saw how transformative it could be back then. But I really didn't have the knowledge I have today. And, I've seen, I can't even tell you, hundreds of PDFs from banks and central banks and, Project Icebreaker, Project Ubin, Project Jasper. There's all these different projects that the BIS, basically the BIS is the central bank of central banks. And they help set policy, and they have a innovation center. And so they do a lot of CBDC testing inside of that center. And it's a really good idea to understand what are they testing, like what do they think they're going to use? And, if you do enough digging, you can kind of start understanding exactly what they're going to use and how they're going to use it.
Damn, that's very, very cool. Yeah, you seem like you're a wealth of knowledge over here. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we have great people like Serenity too. Serenity's been in the community, and he comes to every chat, so he can kind of tell you how much information we go through on a weekly basis. But in an average of a week, we'll probably look at over 100 to 120 different pieces of crypto news in just my chats, let alone whatever's else shared in the community. So we go through a lot of stuff.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, it really is awesome. What made you want to start kind of like doing education, helping people out, starting up Cryptonaires? Like what was the ambition behind that?
It was, I was trying to educate more people for less time, real honestly, right? I wasn't like, oh man, I'm going to get into this thing and make a ton of money for myself. It really was just about educating a bigger group of people for less time, right? Because I was spending like 3-4 hours for one person, 5 hours, and then all the questions that followed up after that. And it was daunting, and I just needed a better place where I could share my research and share what I was looking at and share my ideas with people. And so that's kind of how it got built out, and that's why we built it out.
That's awesome to hear. It's always good to, be in that type of, in that sense that you're, here to help people and onboarding people. I think that's something that we try and focus on, and Crip will bring this up a lot as well, is like kind of bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3, onboarding people into crypto and, getting them interested in like digitalized assets and everything. So yeah, that's really cool. It's nice to see. It's always good to have people that are out there, willing to help, especially just for free. I mean, I know you do tons of YouTube videos. Do you want to talk about those a little bit as well?
Yeah, I mean, we have we have 2 YouTube channels. We have one for Cryptonaires, and then I have one for myself, Robert Doyle. And I started my channel like December of last year, so it's only been like 4 months. Got about 4,300 subscribers so far, so it's a slow and steady growth, so it's not too bad. So yeah, I'd say probably like maybe 1/10 of the information I actually go over is on YouTube. You know, I try to make, you know, a video a day for YouTube, but sometimes it's maybe like 4 or 5 a week. But yeah, it doesn't even kind of come close to the information we get into inside of Cryptonaires. And it, you know, part of being in crypto is finding a safe space that you can grow and ask questions, right? That is really the hardest part, because if you go on any Telegram or you know, you try to get help on Twitter, you know, you get messages from people that are pretending to be from support or whatever it is, right? And you know, having a safe space where you know the people and they're going to help you grow, whether it's our community or this community or a different community. It's always good to have a good place with good people in it, and you know, that's where I spend most of my time, and sharing all the stuff that I can.
That's super nice of you. Yeah, I think that's fantastic what you do, and I love the server over there as well. It's usually a great time. There's tons of information always.
Yeah.
Where do you get all this information? Like, are there any specific resources you utilize or any advice for people?
It's figuring out how to search different things on Google, changing out different things. A lot of YouTube, because you know, one of the biggest things when you're getting into crypto is following the right people, right? You never want to follow someone that's selling you hype. You never want to follow somebody that's, you know, asking you to buy into, you know, a project that doesn't really have a path forward. You know, you want to follow good information and good people. And so that's kind of the first step, right? Twitter, Reddit, Google searching different PDF documents, because a lot of these banks put out documents and they find their way on you know, on the internet somewhere, but finding those documents sometimes can be challenging, because you know, often like HSBC, Citibank, JP Morgan, all these guys are shitting on crypto, but yet JP Morgan's been in crypto since 2014, right? And you know, they're all building out wallets. I think it's like, is it Bank of America or Wells Fargo has like over 200 crypto patents already? I can't remember which one it was.
Wow.
I think it's Wells Fargo. But yeah, man, and we just saw it too. God, what is the bank? Fidelity. So you know how Signature Bank and Silvergate Bank were 2 out of 3 banks that supported crypto on and off ramps for exchanges, right? It's getting money from fiat to crypto, getting money from crypto to fiat, right? And they just got shut down, insolvent, and it really we heard from somebody from Signature that was an attack from the U.S. government on the bank to shut it down. And the U.S. government actually told other banks that were thinking about buying Signature's assets, that they told them that whatever you do, we're not going to allow you to continue with the crypto stuff in the Signature Bank. I guess they had some back end stuff that really allowed them to do all of this stuff. So, you know, fast forward, Fidelity just launched retail crypto services for their customers. And so what we're seeing here is an attack on smaller banks. So the bigger banks can come in and take over or copy the technology or whatever they're doing, and then they can offer the services, right? That's JP Morgan, that's Citi, that's Fidelity, those guys. So, you know, all over the world, crypto's being, you know, adopted, and here, you know, in America, we're trying to go the other way with it, which is really unfortunate and sad.
So I got a question for you. You mentioned HSBC. Have you ever heard of Nubank, NU?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it. What's going on with Nubank?
I was just wondering if you knew anything about those banks, because I actually, ironically, know one of their head lawyers that used to work for HSBC, and now he's on with Nubank. So funny. It's so funny. It's a small world, but I heard you mention HSBC, and I thought, sorry.
Do they have a crypto arm in the bank?
It's funny, while we were on this call, I texted one of my close friends and asked him if I could have his phone number again. And I'm going to give him a call today, because I know he's their lead lawyer right now. So I'd like to get a little bit of insight.
Brazilian fintech unicorn Nubank to start offering crypto services.
Huh.
This is from May 11th of last year. Yep. So yeah, they do offer crypto services. And there's a lot of banks that are stepping up right now that are going to offer crypto services, right? So yeah, it's an interesting space. I kind of feel like we're in the right place at the right time. If the U.S. government is doing everything they can to stop us from owning these assets, I think we're in the right place at the right time, right?
Yeah, I agree.
They're really trying to cut off all of they're trying to cut off retail regular people being able to do all of this stuff, right? The SEC is attacking staking as a service, right? And so they what they want to do is they want to push this all to accredited investors, right? So accredited in the United States, if you don't know this, you have to have either like over $1 million worth of asset, like property, or you have to make 200 to 300 grand over the last 2 years to be an accredited investor. And they're actually trying to raise those levels from 1 million to 10 million. And they don't want regular people becoming mega rich overnight, right? That is what they're trying to do at the end of the day. So yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty easy to see if you open your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, the derivatives market is anywhere from 600 trillion to $1 quadrillion yearly, right? And then the derivatives markets are like you're betting on futures of commodities, right? So in a month, I think this price is going to be higher or lower, and then you have that. So all of those things, derivatives, bond market, stock market, right? Stock market is the smallest, bond market is the second, and then you have the derivatives market, which is the biggest. All of those things will be on a blockchain. Which blockchain? That is the real question. But imagine $600 trillion of value being added to any blockchain. What does that do for the price or the market cap? That will raise that market cap and price of that token because that value lives on that blockchain. So understanding where all of that's going to happen can be extremely impactful for your future.
Wow, well said.
Yeah. So
they have to be strategic. These higher level, I guess you could say authorities or banks, they have to be strategic about how they enter certain markets, in my opinion. So that's why they want to kind of contract and squeeze out the little guys.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you're bringing that up because it does really make it seem like it really makes sense when you say, all these bigger banks have been, doo-dooing on crypto, but at the same time they've been involved for so long. It really shows you like, oh wow, it seems like these guys are really just trying to get their foot in, kick everybody else out so that they can be the first ones in and be the biggest ones. It really makes sense.
Well, let's have an honest talk about what we're talking about here, right? So JP Morgan, HSBC, and Citibank are responsible for like 60 or 70% of cross-border payments. Okay, they make billions and billions and billions of dollars every year in fees, right? So if you pay for something, on Amazon, right, and it's coming from China, you're having instant payment, but you don't have instant settlement. The settlement happens days later. And if it's going from an American bank to a Chinese bank and it has to maybe go through some correspondent banks in the meantime, every bank takes a little bit of piece of that payment and then it finally gets to its destination, right? So what we're talking about here is instant settlement, where you have the payment and settlement at the same time. And, what does that do for these banks? Well, they don't get the billions of dollars in fees. So what do they have to do? They have to adopt the technology, but it takes time to adopt the technology. So what do? They sue the market. They try to stop the market. They do whatever they can to slow innovation down so they can catch up. And when they're ready, that's when you get global or United States regulation. What a lot of people don't know is the G20, the president of the G20 this year is India. And India has had a plan for crypto regulation on ice because the world wasn't ready yet. But they are ready to push that forward. And the G20 countries are the top 20 GDP countries of the world. So you're soon going to have, in 2024, you're going to have the MiCA bill. UK is, that's for the European Union. I think it's like 19 countries. The UK is already working on regulation right now for the United Kingdom that should come out this year. And then you have the United States who can't figure it out, right? You have a lot more people supporting crypto on the Republican side of things than the Democratic side of things right now. And you have a lot of infighting in our country about this and that. And we were too busy fighting each other instead of kind of moving the country forward with things that we all need to get done. And, the great thing about cryptocurrency is it's global, right? And if you have one country kind of slow to adopt it and the rest of the world quick to adopt it, what happens is the US has to actually step up and adopt it, because if every other country is using real-time gross settlement systems, and the United States isn't, then the United States is at a disadvantage, and they don't want that. And
Yep.
so what you're seeing is the FedNow system, the FedNow 24/7, 365 instant payments is launching in this month, right? The FedNow system. So actually this weekend is mass migration of ISO 20022. And we can get into that too if you want to, but the Eurozone and a lot of other countries are moving to instant payments and instant settlements this weekend. And so the globe is going to be a different place here over the next couple months. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Serenity actually had some questions in the chat, and I think this might be relating to what you're saying, but why is March 20th so important, and what do we need to know to be prepared?
Love that. So guys, ISO migration was supposed to start in November of 2022. Swift is a conglomerate of 11,000 banks, right? And they have locations in a lot of places, but that's kind of the payment system of the world is the Swift system. Swift was not ready in November. So Swift pushed it back to March, this weekend's the 17th to the 20th, right? So that is tomorrow it's going to start and then go through the weekend. So you have Swift, you have Target. Target is a payment system in the Euro system. It's called Target and Target 2 or T2S. T2S is Target 2 Securities. So that's are like stocks and bonds and derivatives clearing, okay? So all of that is being pushed out this weekend. All right. Will that do anything for crypto? That is a good question. We don't know, right? Because we don't know if these banks are going to start using DLT solutions that they've tested for years now. They've been testing technology like this, like Ripple or XLM, Algorand, all of these different things. They've been testing this for at least 8 to 10 years, right? Ripple came out in 2012. They've been testing this since 2013, 2014. So they know what they want to use. We just don't know if they're going to start using it right away. It would make sense for them to do that because of how much money they will end up saving. And if you have looked around currently, we have a banking crisis. And I called this crisis like 6 months, 12 months ago in our community. I said, we're going to have a liquidity crisis in 2023, and we're going to have bank runs, and we're going to have all of this stuff. I talked about this till I was blue in the face. Fast forward, now we have a problem. What happened was this. I'll explain this really quickly to you guys. In 2021, we had a lot of stimulus money in around the world, right? Everyone was on lockdown. The governments printed money, gave us money. What do businesses and people do with that money? We go put it in the bank, right? So the bank have all of these extra deposits, billions and billions and billions of dollars. Banks are not supposed to hold a certain amount of extra currency in the bank. So they convert that to treasury bills. And when they converted to treasury bills, the rates were still very low back then. Now, fast forward to today, where you have 5-point raise hike in such a short time. Now, bond markets and different markets have much better returns. So people are rushing to cash their money out of the bank to go put it into this other asset where they can have a bigger spread, of money. And the banks don't have enough liquidity, which is cash on hand, to facilitate that. So what do banks have to do? They have to go sell those bonds that they bought back in 2021 at a huge loss. And that is what causes them to lose billions of dollars and become insolvent very quickly. So that is kind of where we're at right now. So banks actually need this new technology so they can start saving money. And this will also get rid of Nostro Vostro accounts, which are accounts that banks have all around the world to settle with different banks at the end of each day, right? And that gets into like the FX market and all this other stuff. But I hope I explained that okay.
Yeah. No, that was great. That was very, very well said.
Okay.
That's super interesting. I didn't even really know too much about that, so I just learned a lot here. So thank you very, very much. I'm gonna do a little bit of research after this call.
Yeah, and it's a $620 billion problem right now, guys. It's huge. There are going to be other bank runs, and there are going to be other bank failures. This is really just the start of it. And so we're getting to the point now is, does the Fed keep raising rates and keep breaking the banking system? Or do they pause and start lowering rates and turn the money printer back on? That is kind of where we're at right now. There's two roads to go down. Both roads will lead to uncertainty and a more shaky banking system in our world.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This is awesome. Another question from Serenity. I think this kind of lines up pretty well with what we're talking about. With the market in this state of uncertainty, how do you see the landscape changing over the next 6 months?
Okay, so because I foresaw a liquidity crisis, a kind of attack on crypto, I kind of saw a lot of this stuff happening. The last 14 months, I've only educated my community on very, very few DeFi projects, that kind of like what is this, but I really hammered in the best technology and teams and projects to hold, right? So those are kind of like your ISO projects, your XRP, XLM, DAG, Quant, IOTA, Algorand, DAG, Constellation, those type of projects. We really focused on educating that type of stuff. And those are the projects that I think are still going to be around after all this is said and done. We just saw the New York DA bring a case against KuCoin for Ethereum, right? And if you dig down on that, and not to just kind of put your question, but give me one second. To dig down on that, they specifically told one of their investigators to go make an account on KuCoin. In New York, you're not supposed to be able to do this. So the guy went on KuCoin, and KuCoin has 700 tokens listed. They only told the person to buy one cryptocurrency. That was Ethereum. Why, if there's 700 cryptocurrencies on KuCoin, why did they choose Ethereum? They're going after Ethereum next. So, and this is actually brilliant, because Ethereum has gone on to say we're decentralized, nobody controls the network, nobody's here to do anything. But you have Vitalik Buterin and Joseph Lubin behind Ethereum pushing the buttons behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to see if Joseph Lubin or Vitalik Buterin are going to say something about the lawsuit, right? Because if they do, now that they're basically they're the ones who's leading Ethereum into the future. And if you're buying into something and you're giving money, like when they had an ICO with Ethereum, they used the money to build out the network, right? And now now it's a proof of stake. Now people are staking tokens and expecting to earn money back as a reward. Mm-hmm. That hits on different prongs of the Howey test, the test that they're using from the 1930s. So Ethereum is next. I don't own any Ethereum, and I'd be very careful. Vitalik Buterin just sold a shit ton of Ethereum. I think you're gonna see regulators come hard down on Ethereum next, and that's kind of where I'm trying to direct my community away from. Ethereum and Bitcoin really kind of focus on the ISO 20022 projects, because those are the ones that are going to start being used in this new system. And if the project is not ISO compliant, then they can't. The banks won't use those tokens. So there's only about 6 or 7 that they are cleared to use now, and those are really the ones that I try to push as much education as I can, because we're getting new people all the time that come into the community. A lot of people might not know this, they might not know that, and so I kind of have to start with a blank canvas sometimes and really try to just educate those like key pieces. And I know that was a rant for about 5 minutes, but I hope that kind of showed some value of what's happening with New York and with Ethereum and KuCoin.
Yeah, definitely. That opened my eyes a little bit there. I didn't even really think about that deep. So that's really interesting to know. Definitely going to be keeping my eyes out for any future news or anything from Vitalik. Gotta see what he has to say.
Well, because I mean, let's be honest. Ethereum, it does fit a lot of the prongs of the Howey test, and so that's why I warn people. Because new people, when they get into crypto, they really want to get into crypto to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum, and I try to just show people that there are other alternatives to these two coins, and there's information that you should know before you make a decision. I mean, we know for a fact Bitcoin will never be used by banks or financial institutions to send money. How do we know this? Because they cannot AML, anti-money laundering, and there's one for terrorist transactions, right? To make sure, So if you cannot build those kind of things on a payment, a bank cannot use that for payments. So Bitcoin is just a store of value for the people that believe in it. Understand that it doesn't have any real use case. And I know people are like, oh, there's Strike, and you can send Bitcoin for $1. That's great, but you can send XRP for a cent, or you can send XDC for a fraction of a cent. So countries and payment systems are not going to use Bitcoin or Ethereum for payments because it's too expensive. Now you might get after Ethereum goes through this lawsuit or whatever happens with this, years down the line, they may use Ethereum for high value payments, just one-offs. But if you're talking about, thousands and tens of thousands of payments a day, they're going to use the cheapest and fastest possible technology. And that's where your XRPs and your XLMs and your quants and all that stuff come in.
Wow. That's amazing. Very, very, very interesting. Oh, that's super, super cool. I have a lot to look up after this.
Yeah,
yeah. What you got, Tom? What you got?
Bitcoin and Ethereum. You say the countries aren't going to adopt it. Now, I want to bring to like something
El Salvador.
Yeah. So, not El Salvador, but I will say that people are a lot, have a lot of power within themselves, right? So hence why decentralized is such a big item right now. I do think, like personally, feel like Ethereum and Bitcoin might take a decent hit at some. Well, Bitcoin already has taken a decent hit, but Ethereum is, I think, is on its way as well. But I'll say that I think in the future, the decentralized portion of it is valuable. Like you said, the people, it's basically determined by the people, its value. So I think that people are using it for payment systems in the U.S. I see some local companies using it, and I think that there's some value in that as well. Just because the government doesn't necessarily adopt it or can't use it for a medium of exchange for the people, it could be used for a medium of exchange between the people instead of the government to the people.
Let me ask one question, Tom. Where do you see Bitcoin in 5 years from now?
I personally see it's not just, oh God, that's a hard question. 5 years from now, good.
Give me a range. Give me a range. What do you think?
I think I wouldn't group Bitcoin into what I think is going to actually happen, but I do see Bitcoin being easily accessible, especially for like on a local level, because I see so much adoption around here locally for it that it is, anybody can accept any form of currency for their business. So
would you say 250K about 5 years?
I would say 5 years, 250K. I don't know.
Probably 2 bull runs. That's probably 2 bull runs, right? You're going to get a run up for a year and a half, then you're going to get a stagnation period, and then you're going to get another run up. So let's say 250 grand. That's a 10x. 10x. Yeah. That's a 10x. If it goes to 500 grand, that's a 20x.
Sure.
Now, I'm sure there's people in here that can't afford 1 Bitcoin, right? It's 25 grand, right? Sure. So my question to you is this. If you had 25 grand, would you buy 1 Bitcoin, or would you spread it out to other possibilities that might bring in higher returns over the next 5 years?
Oh, I'm going to be well diversified. Yeah, going to be well.
And I'm not saying Bitcoin is a bad thing. I'm just saying when it comes to central banks and big payment systems like CGI Worldwide, Accenture, all of those guys that process trillions of dollars a day in payments, they cannot use Bitcoin because it's not AML, it's not KYC. They don't know where the money's coming from, right? It has to have those features. And it doesn't have a private ledger too, right? You have to have a private ledger for central banks and banks to use. If you don't have a private ledger, they're not going to use a public one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it all makes sense with regulation. I mean, I understand where it's coming from. Totally.
What has a private ledger? What is instant settlement, 3 to 5 seconds, costs less than a penny, and it's a bridge asset?
Say it again. Sorry, I'm
all right. No, you're good, man. So XRP is been tested and used by dozens of central banks. I've gone through dozens and dozens and dozens of PDFs and hundreds of PDFs and different documents showing connections to something like a bridge asset. They don't come out and say we're using XRP in most of it, but you can start connecting dots on some of this stuff, right? So XRP has a private ledger that banks and central banks will use to facilitate payment transfers. And the reason they'll use something like XRP because it's a bridge asset, right? So meaning like if you're in British pounds and I want US dollars, you can send British pounds and I can receive in US dollars, right? If you send me XRP but I want Bitcoin, it can do that as well, right? It just bridges assets, right? So in the future, over the next couple of years, you're going to have 180 different currency pairs, right? And these could be like the US dollar against all these other countries, and then all these countries against the US dollar, the British pound, and whatever, right? There's a ton of currencies, right? That's over 34,000 different currency pairs that'll have to be made, right? Gold to silver, silver to palladium, palladium to whatever, right? All of this stuff will be interchangeable on blockchains, right? And then you need a bridge asset to settle all of that stuff, right? So you're talking about tokenizing gold, tokenizing silver, all of that's happening already, right? You guys are doing that, right? Tokenizing diamonds, right? All of the value is going to live on blockchains. So you pick the right blockchains and you invest in those particular blockchains, because those blockchains will probably have the biggest rate of return, because all the value in the world is going to end up on blockchains. There's $328 trillion in real estate. All of that will be tokenized, put on a blockchain. Picture art, right? Anything is going to everything of value: gold, silver, oil, gas, natural gas, carbon, energy. Everything of value is going to live on blockchains. It might take some years, but that's where we're heading. And if you pick the right blockchains, right? If 20 trillion or $100 trillion in derivatives get added to a particular blockchain, well, that, 20 billion or $30 billion market cap goes to 20 trillion, right? Because that value now lives on that blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So if you're a bank and you're issuing mortgage loans, right, to the customer, they don't know that they're using blockchain, right? Because they build out APIs and different apps that, you don't really understand that. But the value will live on the blockchain. And when you interact with your banking app, it'll interact with the smart contract that you pay your mortgage with, right? And this is going to level the playing field as, regulators and cryptocurrency companies and different people talk about leveling the playing field. So in the future, regular people will be able to loan their assets to businesses and other people and make a nice return. Right now, as an individual, if I had $1 million and somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Robert, I want to go buy a home for 500 grand. I'll pay you 5% interest." Now with a smart contract, you're going to be able to become your own bank. And that's really when you start making your assets work for you, right? A lot of people just think, oh, I got to buy and sell crypto. That's not the case. You buy certain cryptos, you hold those, and as they increase in value, then you start to loan that crypto with, it can be with some backing, or maybe it's not quite backed, but you want to pick and choose. But you're going to be able to start earning your own interest and become your own bank with your cryptocurrency in the future, and it's very, very close.
Yeah,
wow, this is an incredible chat.
And one thing I notice in the real world versus like crypto is there's a lot of banks, especially in the hometown that I am, that are starting up that are building these brand new buildings. Everybody's building these multi-million dollar, billion-dollar buildings. And it's like, where's that money coming from? Well, it's pretty easy to tell if you look. So the thing that I value a lot about the blockchain is that it puts more of the money back into the folks' hands that are investing.
Yep.
Because you're not paying for these huge, yes, there's some infrastructure costs, but I mean, come on, let's face it, for the last, I don't know, I won't even put a time frame on it, but I'll say that it's a big difference. You don't see that happening, in DeFi. Well, besides all the bad players that are rugging, but I'll say that in general, there's not these massive buildings going up for these local level companies, or smaller projects. They're paying more out to the users.
Yeah, and to talk a little bit about banks, right? Banks in general, they're there to make money, and they're there to offer services to their customers, right? If you're in a certain bank and the bank across the street is offering services that you love, like instant payments, right, or custody your crypto, because that's where this is going, right? They want to custody your assets. That's what it is, and so. If the competition is offering those services, customers will leave the bank that they're in to go to where it's better. So what does that do? It puts pressure on every other bank to adopt these new services. 365, 24/7 instant payments is going to be the biggest thing people want, right? You can have instant payment, but instant settlement is really where it is. It's key. And we were getting back to, you know what? I had a train of thought. Nostro Vostro accounts, to come back to this, right? There's $15 trillion locked up around the world in Nostro Vostro accounts, right? And these accounts are used to settle or make FX transactions or do whatever it needs to be. So at the end of the day, you have JP Morgan, you have Wells Fargo, right? There's $1 billion that is owed to JP Morgan. At the end of the day, the money gets transferred over depending where they are in the world. These banks need this cash that is locked up all over the world. How do they free that cash? Well, having instant settlement would free up all of that capital. So now banks, instead of having capital locked up all around the globe, can now put that capital to use. It's not worthless. It's not just there losing money, right? Because if you're an American company, you're doing business in China, you have to have a bank account in China to pay distributors, to pay for whatever, pay your people. And if those currencies are losing a percentage or whatever, you could be losing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars if you have enough money in that account. And so banks want to be able to pull this capital back and put it to good use, loaning it to other people or buying services and products or doing whatever. So that's what's happening right now. Right now, over this weekend with ISO implementation, banks will be able to use this new system, take their capital back.
Oh, wow. That's going to be very interesting. I look forward to having you back as well, because you're a wealth of knowledge, man. I learned a lot every time I talk to you. I appreciate how much of a dive you take into this. I can tell you're passionate about it. Not only are you passionate, professional, and you're well educated, so thank you.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about new projects failing, right? We got to understand where we're investing right now, right? We're investing in technology that 95% of the world thinks it's a scam, because that's all they've been fed through their local news, right? And it's difficult when you're a project founder. There's hundreds of things that can go wrong, but the biggest things that can go wrong are this: somebody leaves the team, right? If your developer leaves your team and there's an issue that comes up, that's a problem. There's that. There is smart contract issues, right? And then there's something happens in the community where you might have said something or done something, and everyone leaves your community, right? Because of something that happened. I'll give you an example. Red Light Finance had a CEO. His name was Alex, and Alex was very rude to people. I said this when I first met Alex. I said, you're kind of, you're brash. And I said, we didn't like each other, but I still sent him a message. I said, hey man, the way that you talk to people in your community, it doesn't look good. Can you try to be a little bit nicer? And he told me to get fucked, basically. And so I backed off, and then he got fired. But think of how much bad publicity that put on Red Light. And I don't know if they're going to make it out of this, but that is the three biggest things that can happen with new projects. And that's why you see 95% of new projects fail, because they're they're brand new startup businesses, right? And you need to have a solid team, a solid development team, and you need to have a solid community. Those are three things that you need to make it happen. And usually one of those three things breaks. And that's why it's tough. That's why when you come into our community, I tell you, hey, take a certain percentage of your money. I'm not a financial advisor, just by the way, but if I was telling this to my mother or my dad or my friend, I would say, take a small percentage of your money and invest it in those new startups. But you want to make sure that most of your capital is going into companies that have been built, companies that have customers, and companies that are changing the world in some way. If you invest in any project, you need to ask yourself, what is this project doing? What is it going to change? And who is going to use it? If you can answer those three questions and it looks really good, then that's probably a better place for that bigger portion of your money to go to than putting it into these newer DeFi projects that have not yet been able to expand and grow and build up that stuff. So, you just want to be very cautious and cognizant of what you're doing with your capital. And just try to understand that if 2 or 3 of these projects you invest in go big and the 7 fail, that's really what an average investor looks at. Or like a person that's investing in startups like a hedge fund or whatever, they think 10% or 20%. If I can get 10 or 20% of this to work and go big, then I can make up all of the capital I lost on this other 8. But what people do is they think, oh man, I lost money on this project, I lost money on this project, but where did you gain money, right? And people need to just change their mindset and the way that they think about all of this, because you're really investing in new technology, and when you invest in new technology, it changes, and you have to be able to roll and adapt. And you're not always going to win, but if you win more than you lose, that's what you're trying to do in the long run.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I have some buddies that I should say buddies, but clients. I have some clients. One of my clients runs a pretty. He's ran some pretty decent DC funds, hedge funds, and it's interesting to have conversations with him. He's got over 200 employees now. He does accounting for hedge funds, but it's interesting his take on it as well. It's some of those VC funds and hedge funds are really actually quite risky. It's surprising. I'm actually kind of shocked. I was like, wow, that's you telling me about some of these investments, and some of these guys in the VC funds for the accounting side, he's like, these guys will throw a freaking dart on the wall and hope that it sails, and they'll put millions in it. And so, but their capital allocation is different. It's like the percentage is much higher, right? So that might be that extra little bit of funds you're talking about that you invest into these startups. It seems like a lot, but for them, it might just be small apples.
And you're exactly right. And they're using that 10 or 20% rule, right? They're using that rule. And that's the rule that you should be using, because if these big hedge funds are using it, I mean, that's a tried and tested rule. So, if you invest in something and it doesn't work out, don't get down on yourself. Just try to do better due diligence in the future. There's a lot of things you can't control. You can't control the team, you can't control the community, you can't control what happens in Twitter or any of these other places. So make sure that, you guys are fantastic. You guys are on camera, you're talking about it, you've been KYC'd. You guys are not, I wouldn't call you a risky DeFi project. I would call you a DeFi project that has plans and goals in mind, and you guys are acting and facilitating on those plans. But there's a lot of other DeFi projects that don't have even 1/10 of what you guys have built, that people are just throwing money at, thinking like, hey, it's going to go somewhere. But and also too, DeFi projects, guys, you gotta understand, you get a very big rise as the project launches. If you can't get in pre-sale or early, don't buy into that rise, because all of it's going to do is going to correct a day or two later, and then you're going to have stagnant growth for a long time, because new projects have to develop and build and grow. So, one small piece of advice I can give you on investing in new DeFi projects is don't buy into the hype. Thank you so much. Don't buy into the hype. Just wait for a better buying opportunity, or find a new project, right? There's always something new launching, and you can, it's better to be early than buy into the hype every time.
It's like when I go to a restaurant for the first time, I've never even seen them, right? It's like a DeFi project. Some of the ones that I've never seen before, you don't ever like, if you just find out about it, usually you don't enter up right away. It's like, okay, well, I've done my mistakes before and gone to these restaurants, and I go, oh, jeez, man, I just spent $300 on a dinner, and that I would have been better off going to like Jimmy John's or something. But I
don't know Jimmy John's, but anytime you go into a restaurant that you haven't ate before, you're always looking at other people's food, right? Like, hey, that looks good. Can I get that? Or that looks good. It's the same thing. We're all curious creatures, right? We see something that kind of piques our interest, and we head over there. We inspect it a bit. It's the same thing with DeFi projects, right? Yeah. But having that level of understanding of what the technology is, what it's going to do. Because that is the biggest question. What is this going to change? And if you don't have a good answer, or the team doesn't have a good answer, that's probably not where you want to go with your money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Well said. Definitely. And this has been a fantastic time. I don't want to get it too much longer. It's almost getting to an hour here. But Doc did have one question I wanted to bring up.
What you got, Doc?
It was, what is your opinion on the Fed's next move with the rates? Will they continue on the current path with hikes, or do you think that they will tug on the reins sooner rather than later?
It's a good question.
The Fed has said over and over again that there is going to be no rate drop in 2023 into 2024. They've said it over and over again. We were headed for a 0.5 basis point raise. I think it's like 22nd is the meeting, or 23rd. I think it's 22nd is the next Fed meeting. I was thinking that they're going to raise it 0.5 because of Signature, Silvergate, and SVB, Silicon Valley Bank. I don't think they can go 0.5, but they're still at a place where inflation is at 6% in the US. It's 3 times what they want it to become. So they're really in a bad position right now. Think about this. Inflation is still kind of coming up. You want to be able to raise rates a little bit more, but if you raise rates a little bit more, something else is going to break in the banking system. So they are really in a catch-22 position. If they turn the money printer on right now, we're going to be extremely fucked, because we're already at 6% inflation, or supposed to be 6% inflation. I think it's a little bit higher, but whatever. That is going to keep going up if we continue to print money. So they have not been able to tame inflation, and we have this kind of going up. So they're really at a dead crossroads. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but if thinking from a banker's point of view, one of these economists, I think a rate hike is still what they have to do. I think they're going to do 0.25 in the next meeting, which is next week, and we'll see what happens. But I don't think they're at a place where they can turn the money printer back on yet. What they're going to do is they're going to probably keep raising rates, try to battle inflation, and as more banks fail, they'll just bail them out, as they did Silicon Valley Bank. It's a $620 billion problem right now with banks in the US. $620 billion in unrealized losses, and that it's kind of the same exact example what I explained earlier on what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. A lot of these banks are in the same position.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money too, like 628 billion. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah. There's a lot more currency that we realize that's available at the government's fingertips too. Oh gosh, we could go a deep dive in there, and I'd like to bring a friend on to kind of help educate some folks on that as well. But he's insight. Now, I'll say that, $628 billion is a lot, but we've seen our government waste way more than that on petty stuff. So I hope in the future that they can kind of bring some things into alignment, because inflation is, we need to go back to the core reason of inflation, and why it happened. And I think that gets overlooked often.
Well, now we're going to an asset-backed system again. Understand that, right? Basel III, Basel IV. If you haven't looked into those things, just Google Basel III, Basel IV. This is where banks actually have to hold assets to back up the assets they hold, right? A certain amount, right? And so that's why gold is at historic levels of being purchased by central banks. In 60 years, they've never bought as much gold as they're buying right now. Why? Why are they buying all this gold? Well, they're probably going to re-tier gold, the price of gold, whatever. But that's kind of where we're heading to, right? And that's a whole nother conversation, another whole lane to go down. But you have Africa working on a common currency. You have the BRICS countries working on a currency of their own, right? The end of the petrodollar is here, right? Where, oh God, this is a whole new lane of thing. I don't know if we have enough time to go through this, but there's so much going on here.
The petrodollar. So I'm glad you're doing this. Keep going.
Okay, so all right, so check it out. So God, what was it? 71 we got off the gold standard. That was Nixon, right? But we made a deal with Saudi Arabia. It was called the OPEC agreement. And what it meant was if any gas or oil or that they produce or around the world is bought, it was bought in US dollars. And that's really what gave the US dollar supremacy. Not only the huge army and navy that we had during the time, but it also opened up the world to global trade, right? The US said, "Hey, we'll protect all the supply lanes," and this really we entered a world where countries were able to import and export things without worrying about being attacked by pirates or whatever it was, right? And so now Saudi Arabia has said that they're going to stop using that as the US dollar as the currency. So now they're taking the digital yuan, or they're taking the China's money, the renminbi. They're taking the ruble from Russia, and they're taking other currencies, right? And all of this stuff is going to be digitized, right? Gold and oil and natural gas is going to be digitized, and they're going to use that to trade. And so that gives the US dollar a lot less supremacy around the world. And so we're at a very interesting time. Peter Zeihan, he's incredible about geopolitics. If you want to start learning about that stuff, I don't really know as much as I would like to know about it, but he is incredible. If you Google Peter Zeihan, he will lay it down for you about all of this kind of what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and what he sees. But we're at a very interesting place because the BRICS nations are adopting digital assets, right? Africa is way ahead of the digital asset race, and so is India, so is Brazil, so is Australia, so is Japan, so is Singapore. All these countries are working to change laws. The UAE just has a $2 billion fund. A hedge fund in the UAE put out $2 billion for crypto startups. So all of these other places around the world understand how important the technology is, and they want all of the new businesses. They even allowed, they have a zone where you can pay zero taxes on your crypto business in the UAE, in the free zone. So all of these countries are working to adopt this technology and move to a digital economy. And that's why you have Africa, since certain countries in Africa are working on a common currency. You have Argentina and Brazil working on a common currency. And so all of this stuff is going to really de-dollarize the world from having that as the supreme asset. You also don't have countries like China buying as much debt, US debt, as they used to, right? China is the biggest buyer of US debt, and there's a reason for that. I think it was Russia that bought like 250 billion or trillion yen or something. I can't remember if it was billion or trillion. I'm sorry, but they bought in bonds, and then they went to go get their money back from China, and China said, we don't want the money back, right? Basically kind of screwing Russia. So the US dollar, I think, will still remain the world reserve currency, because what else are you going to use? You can't use China's money because no one's going to trust it. You can't use Russia because Russia's been disconnected from the entire financial system. Right. So the US dollar is still going to remain the currency. But what is going to happen is you're going to have digital currency that is going to be added to this new world agenda and the value that'll be moving around. And the problem with this is, if you're the United States, you're not going to do business in China's money. If you're Russia, you're not going to do business in the United States money. So all of these different countries need a asset that they can all agree on to use. And I think that asset is XRP personally. But we're going to see how this whole plays out. The whole world needs liquidity. All of these banks need liquidity right now. They don't have enough cash on hand. And to take that Nostro Vostro money back, start using cryptocurrency to move value around the planet, that's where we are right now this weekend.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate you very much.
Absolutely.
You're firing off, man. I appreciate it. You're on it. So thank you.
I'm very passionate, if you could tell, about cryptocurrency and technology and trying to understand it before I can teach it. But if you guys want to join a community where you can learn from somebody like me and our team, you can go to cryptonaires.com. I can actually type it in here, and we actually have a discount, 50% off discount for life. If you want to sign up, New Year 23, it'll cost you $50 a month, and the value that you will get and the information that you will get will probably, I don't want to say it's priceless, because there's always a price, but really understanding this technology and being able to adapt it and start using it, this is the greatest time. You're only going to get one shot at this. It's a revolution going from a fiat system to a digital system, and all of the value of the world is going to be moved onto blockchains. And if you own the right blockchains, you're going to be set up for the rest of your life.
Yeah. No, that's definitely well said. This is like an entire Sensei chat, so I think everybody just had a pretty good time in the audience. I hope everybody was enjoying that, because that's like $100 right there.
No, and we'll do 2 chats like this a week. My chats usually go about an hour and 30 and an hour and 40 minutes, because we go through so much news. I talk very fast, so I go through a lot of stuff. But if you want to really kind of take your knowledge to the next level, I'm always there to help you. If you have a question, you send me a thing, and I'll help you answer. But you can ask Serenity. He comes to every one of my Sensei chats, and he can tell you how much value is in there and how much he's learning. And he's an influencer. He's out there trying to teach people about crypto. And me and him work in tandem and work on stuff together. But we'll take your knowledge to the next level, and really we'll get you to a place where you feel comfortable telling all your friends and family what you're learning. That's really kind of what we're trying to do. So if I can give anyone questions,
I'll be joining as well into your. I know I was trying to get that sucker done. I apologize. I'm just juggling this pre-sale.
And I'm an angel investor too in CLF, so I'm excited about the project, right? In collective finance.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate that a lot. We're looking forward to having you on board, and we think it's going to be a great time. So we're super excited to be working with you, and even have you here to do this chat with us today. I think it's super, super valuable. I myself learned quite a lot, so definitely interested.
That's all I care about at the end of the day, man. And if you guys ever want to have me back, we can get into different topics or whatever. I can tell you kind of what you should be looking at as far as projects. But yeah, just let me know, and I'd be happy to come back and spend some more time with you guys. All right.
We're gonna bring you back, brother. You know, obviously you're one of our angels and more than an angel. So thank you for everything you do for us, and we will have you back. So we'll get that up on the schedule and we'll coordinate and get you back.
Appreciate it. And if anyone has any questions, guys, about crypto or life, send me a message. I'll try to do my best to answer them. Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. Thank you for all the knowledge. I think it was, once we get this video out, I'm actually so excited to send it to some of my off-chain investors because you covered a lot.
I recorded it. So I'm gonna stop the video recording right now. Let me get it edited. I'll get a thumbnail put on it and I'll send it to you. Okay.
Sounds great, man. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
All right, guys.
All right.
You guys too. Take care.
Yeah.
Hey,
Thanks for coming.
Good luck on the pre-sale.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
man.
cheers.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
See ya.